Shalom. So, we're on Genesis 38. And Genesis 38 is an interesting story, which a lot of people skip. So, it is as it is. Did I not name this stream correctly? I am thinking I did not name this stream correctly. I will have to fix that later. Actually, let me do that right now. Okay. So, let us get started. It came to pass at that time that Judah departed from his brothers and visited a certain Adullamite whose name was Hira. At that time, Judah left his brothers and went down to stay with a man of Adullam named Hira. Now it came about at that time that Judah was demoted by his brothers, and he turned away until he came to an Adullamite man named Hira. Interesting. And, okay, we'll do the Rashi. Why was this section placed here where it interrupts the section dealing with Joseph? To teach us that his brothers, Judah's, demoted him from his high position when they saw their father's distress. They said, "You told us to sell him. Had you told us to return him, we would have obeyed you." And that's from the Tanhuma Buber Vayeshev 8. Okay. Vayehi ba'et hahi vayered Yehuda me'et echav vayet ad ish adulami ushmo Hira. So I see why he translated it differently. And I will tell you that you might actually be able to find all of the really interesting translations that are very different between Christians and Jews. Well, not all of them, but all of the interesting ones, because most of them, the Christian one's just wrong. But me'et, this is something that doesn't translate very well. And yeah, if you look at all the me'ets, that's where a lot of theological differences come in. And I think it's just from the fact that it's so hard to translate. And so in Judaism, we realize that this is telling us something special, different, and Christians just glide over it, making the sentence a bit different than it was before. So, okay, so it was at that time. I'm not sure I've seen this particular construction of it was at that time. Kind of unusual, right? Ba'et hahi, at that particular time. Very interesting. And do not be confused by the chirik followed by the vav. This happens in the Torah a lot. So when you are reading the Torah, basically he is, I'm not even sure, it might be most of the times, might be close to all of the times, written with a vav, but it is actually he. So Vayered Yehuda, and this is where the difference comes in. So Yered literally means to go down, and it so when we talk about leaving the land of Israel or going down to Egypt, we will say that somebody went down, right? So it can mean to go somewhere, to depart, but it's saying Vayered Yehuda me'et achiv, which explains why Rashi is explaining that this is telling us that he was departed, dejected, demoted by his brothers. So me'et echav, his brothers. Vayet ad ish. So interesting way of putting it. So yet netiah is how we talk about pitching a tent. So they're translating it as settled, which I guess, yeah, I mean, how'd they translate it? He turned away until he turned away. Yeah, yet does mean to turn away. So the sentence I usually explain yet with is note or kisalma, right? That God wears wears light like a garment. So yet spread, turn, pitch a tent. I honestly think it must have originally been some sort of having to do with cloth and moving cloth or setting cloth, and it became what it became, and it means what it does, which is not exactly something that English has an exact nata is, yeah, exactly, to pitch a tent, right? So do not get it confused with nata with an ayin, which means to plant. That's different. Might even be with a tough. Don't get those confused. But so here, I mean, they're saying stretch out, spread out, extend, incline, bend. Right? Yeah, it's a strange word. Okay. Ad ish adulami, until a man who was an Adulamite, Ushmo Chira, and his name was Chira. Okay, next verse. And Judah saw there a daughter of a certain Canaanite whose name was Shua, and he married her and went in to her. There Judah met the daughter of a Canaanite man named Shua. He married her and made love to her. And there Judah saw the daughter of a merchant named Shua, and he took her and came to her. So, yeah, what Rashi says is that Kenani here was translated by Onkelos as Tagara, which is a merchant. Um, so, Vayar Sham Yehuda Bat Ish Kenani, and I mean, Targum Onkelos apparently says that this is, for some reason, not like we would normally say of Kenani, which is Canaanite. Yeah. Not sure why. Oh, here we go. Noun, masculine, trader, merchant. Compare Canaan. What's it doing? Sorry about that. Only singular. See below. So in Zechariah 14:21, Proverbs. So some places, Kenani is actually translated as a merchant or trafficker. Yeah. But do not get this confused with koneh with a kuf. That is a different, doesn't have an ayin. That is a completely different root. Ushmo Shua, and his name was Shua. Veyikacheha, so to take is usually what we talk how we say to marry, right? Lakachat isha. I have no idea what's going on here, but I am going to. Apparently, something in Chrome is causing problems with my. Antivirus. So, I have had this problem before with Bible Hub. I don't know what's going on, but sometimes things go wrong with Bible Hub. I'm guessing that is it. Let me see if I can just ignore it. Okay, so it should no longer give me any warnings. Okay. Sorry about that. Let's get back to Bible Hub. Okay. So, we were talking about lakachat v'yikacheha, right? He took her. Maybe an ad here. Not sure what you mean, Ben. By here, there was an ad in verse 1. Oh, you mean maybe adulami was ad? Well, I mean, it has an ad ish adulami. Yeah, until, and then verse 2. Vayar, yeah, I don't see an ad. I'm not sure what you mean. Okay, so that's vayikacheha, and he married her. He took her as a wife. Vayavo aleha, and he literally came to her. The ad. Sorry, I had moved. Yeah, it may be an ad on Bible Hub. I previously disabled some of the programming on Bible Hub, which made me have fewer problems, but it also made it harder to navigate. An ad. Sorry, I was thinking in Hebrew. I'm like, what does he mean ad? Okay. And yeah, so to come to her is I mean, it's one of the ways the Bible mentions relations between man and wife. V'tahar v'teled ben v'ikra et shemo So, and she conceived, right? She became pregnant, Tahar. V'teled, and she gave birth. And again, teled, I believe there's a 2-letter root, lamed daled, which explains both children and begetting and everything that has to do with that. And but I think Strong's splits it up into several roots. So she gave birth to a son and called him which literally means awake. V'tahar od. Oh, sorry, forgot to read the thing. She conceived again and bore a son, and she called his name Onan. And he became really famous. She conceived again and gave birth to a son and named him Onan. And she conceived again and bore a son and named him Onan. Awake. Oh, yeah. Dominic's like, tell your son to go to bed. Yeah, I guess. That would be kind of funny. V'tahar od, so she got pregnant again. V'teled ben, and she had a son. V'tikra et shemo Onan, and she called him Onan. Verse 5, sorry. And she conceived yet again and bore a son and called his name Shelah. He was at Chezib when she bore him. We'll see what it is. Okay. She gave birth to still another son and named him Shelah. It was at Chezib that she gave birth to him. Once again she bore a son, and she named him Shelah, and he, that is Yehuda, was in Chezib. We'll see what that is. When she gave birth to him. Rashi explains the Chezib, like Kozev, the name of the place. I say, however, that it was called Chezib because she stopped giving birth. Interesting. This is similar to the verse, Jeremiah 15:18. You are to me as a failing spring. Interesting. And Isaiah 58:11, whose water does not fail, Zabu. So Kozev usually means diluted. Interesting. Otherwise, what does Scripture intend to tell us? Moreover, in Genesis Rabbah 85:4, I saw, and she named him Shelah. She stopped bearing. So, if you want to, so he's actually translating Chaziv there. Okay. Vatosef od v'teled ben v'tikra et shemo Shelah v'haya bichziv belidta oto. So Vatosef od, and she continued to. Usually, I translate Tosef od, continued to. I guess yet again that makes sense. Vateled ben, and she gave birth to a son. V'tikra et shemo, and she called him Shelah. V'haya, so this is in the masculine, and that's why a capital. Isn't kozev to lie? Yes. So to delude, yes. Ish kozev. But Rashi gives those two verses where he says it means to stop. We can look those up. Let me see here. So they say, yeah, from to lie, but so do they bring those verses? Isaiah 57:11, was that one of? No, 58:11 was. Let's see what 58:11 has to say. So, ונחת הווי תמיד, והשפיע בצחצחו נפשות, ויחלץ והיית כגן רבה, כמוצא מים, אשר לא יחזבו. So, yeah, I mean, that's how Strong's is identifying it with the same verb, yet they don't seem to here we go. Disappoint, fail of a divine revelation, Habakkuk 23, waters of a spring 58:11. So he's Rashi's saying it's in that sense. Yeah, literally or figuratively, fail, to be found, a liar, be in vain. So, yeah. So that's Kozev there. And obviously, I mean, it's talking about a place, but Rashi is darshaning the meaning, because he's like, well, why is it telling us that Judah, like, he wasn't there when his wife, right? What does that matter? Belideta, in her. So this is an aspirated hey because of the dagesh in it. In her giving birth to him. Okay. Verse 6. Then Judah took a wife for Er, his firstborn, and her name was Tamar. Judah got a wife for Er, his firstborn, and her name was Tamar. And Judah took a wife for Er, his firstborn, named Tamar. Vayikach Yehuda isha le'er bechoro ushma Tamar. So, and he took, right, he married a wife, le'er, for Er, bechoro, his firstborn son. That's what Bechor means. It's with a chaf, not a het. Ushma, and her name, Tamar. Again, with the aspirated hey there. Okay, verse 7. But Er, Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord killed him. I'm wondering if Rashi says why it says his firstborn twice. But Er, Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the Lord's sight, so the Lord put him to death. Chabad. Now Er, Judah's firstborn, was evil in the eyes of the Lord, and the Lord put him to death. So Rashi says it's similar, but he doesn't say why it's interesting. So the Talmud says he similarly did not want his wife to get pregnant, which is not good. But I'm wondering why it says that he is a Bechor twice. Don't know. Vayehi er bechor Yehuda, ra be'enei Havaya, vayimitehu. Interesting. Okay, so this is bechas. This is a hifil bechisaron. So this is a chirik there without a yud. I would have definitely expected a yud there. But so Vayehi er bechor Yehuda. So er was the bechor of Yehuda. Ra was. This is the exact same word as is used in the Garden of Eden for good and evil. Tov v'ra. Be'enei Havaya, right? So in the eyes of God, Einayim is in construct form with the tetragrammaton there. Vaimitehu, and caused him to die. Interestingly, without a yud, Havaya. Okay. Verse 8. And Judah said to Onan, go into your wife's brother and marry her, and raise up an heir to your brother. And this is what is referred to as Levirate marriage. Generally, we do not we do not practice Levirate marriage anymore, although there have been people who recently have wanted to actually go ahead and do that. So Ben says, maybe a clipped form of Hefil due to the Vav. You mean Vayimetehu? Really, honestly, I think, we generally have a rule that if something is Bechisaron or Milui, especially because it's a Yud, because Yud and Vav are both letters from God's name, we say that there is something lacking or not good here, obviously. You can darshan it in many ways, but what exactly? Yeah, I'm not sure. I would say that. Oh, you mean the vav as in mem vav taf? That the ayin hapoel, that the second radical is a vav. No, that actually makes me kind of expect the hirik to be written b'maleh, even more so. But I don't know. I'm no expert. Dominic says, I always wondered if the meaning of this passage is that intercourse for leisure is bad, since he spilled his semen on the ground. And that has been one interpretation. I think that's the Catholic interpretation. When it comes to a Jewish understanding of this, spilling semen is in fact not a good thing. Sex is supposed to be had within marriage, and it is considered a good thing, even for people who cannot have children. She's already gone through menopause. For man and wife to be intimate with each other, but wasting anything is considered, in a real way, a denial of God, right? So, even breadcrumbs, many people will, especially religious Jews, will feed them to birds rather than throw them in the trash, because they say that's wasting things. So there's one, yes, wasting things is bad. You shouldn't do it. I would be a little bit careful about being too exaggerating the problem of onanism / masturbation. Yes, I'm not in any way saying that Judaism doesn't say masturbation is a bad idea. I think some people mischaracterize how bad of an idea it is, and there have definitely been rabbis, especially more recently, who have tried to explain to people that people who, again, this kind of gets down to my Talmud thing. People take Talmudic statements at face value. The Talmud will tell you that embarrassing someone is worse than killing them. And in some ways, it is worse than killing them. Don't equate it with murder. And certainly nocturnal emissions and bad idea. I mean, yeah. I don't want to get too much into this, but the biblical story here, this is somebody who deliberately wanted to not do what he was commanded to do, right? That's different. He is deliberately doing something against, and that's a whole other thing, right? So if you have the capacity to have children and you don't, that's a very different thing. If you do that on purpose, then anything not related to that. And so God's not going to strike you dead if you masturbate. I hope that's clear. So, yeah, not going to go too far into this, but yeah. Okay. So, next verse. Did we... Okay. And Judah said to Onan, "Go into your brother's wife and marry her and raise her up an heir to your brother." Right. So we started with this. This is Labyrinth Marriage. We don't actually. So there's a whole Yibum ceremony. There's a whole thing here, but you have to understand that a woman who was married and had no children was then far less marketable and might in fact be left a widow in this situation, and the Torah has rahmanut on her. She has no children, she has no husband, and so the husband's family was required to provide for her, including a husband, and that's what Labyrinth Marriage was about. So okay. Yeah. Then Judah said to Onan, "Sleep with your brother's wife and fulfill your duty to her as a brother-in-law to raise up offspring for your brother." Chabad. So Judah said to Onan, "Come to your brother's wife and perform the rite of the Levirate and raise up progeny for your brother." Okay. Vayomer Yehuda leOnan, bo el eshet achicha, vayabem otah, v'hakem zera leachicha. So Ben says, why didn't he want children with her? So Rashi's explanation of the first guy was he just he wanted his wife to stay young and fresh and not, undergo thing. Onan apparently he specifically was so Yibum, right, which is this Levirate marriage as it's called. In Hebrew, it's yibum, and that's the verb that's being used here, veyabem, right? To perform the duty of a husband's brother, yabam. Yeah. So the a primitive root of a doubtful meaning used only as a denominative from yabam, to marry a deceased brother's widow, perform the duty of a husband's brother, marry. And it was generally believed that because of the yibum ceremony, the child would actually spiritually derive from the dead brother. And so apparently he hated his brother. That's the explanation given. But in any case, he did not. He didn't want her to get married. I mean, he didn't want her to get pregnant. Okay. So vayabem ota v'hakem zera le'achicha. So he said to Onan, "Bo el eshet achicha," right? So go to your brother's wife. This is the preposition with the aleph. Eshet achicha, isha is in construct form with your brother, singular you. Vayabem ota, and do this yibum, right? This is how we refer to this particular marriage. And again, has aspirated hey. Vehakem zera le'achicha. So hakem is the hefil of lakum. So it's the causative of to stand or to establish, raise up, right? Zera, a seed for your brother. So an heir, a child for your brother. And yeah, it was basically considered that there was a special spiritual inheritance within this yibum process that would give life in a certain way to the brother. And I think generally, in fact, the child would be named after the dead brother as well. I think that was generally the rule. Okay. Verse 9. But Onan knew that the heir would not be his, and it came to pass, when he went in to his brother's wife, that he emitted on the ground, lest he should give an heir to his brother. But Onan knew that the child would not be his, so whenever he slept with his brother's wife, he spilled his semen on the ground to keep from providing offspring for his brother. So, obviously, this guy is going beyond what simple masturbation or even sex that's not procreative, and even sex with birth control, which again, Judaism is absolutely against males using birth control in any way. The halacha is that a woman can use birth control if pregnancy would place her life in danger. Okay. Where were we? Now Onan knew that the progeny would not be his, and it came about when he came to his brother's wife, he wasted his semen on the ground in order not to give seed to his brother. Vayeda Onan ki lo yihye hazara V'haya im ba el eshet achiv v'shichet arza lebilti netan zera leachiv. And I'm not sure, he may have had his own wife. I'm not sure if anybody says anything about that, but obviously this was back when there were polygamous marriages. Okay, so Yod Onan knew ki lo, not his, right? With the Zera, and I think it's being changed here to Zara because of the cancellations. I'm pretty sure that's what's going on here. V'haya im ba, so it was whenever or if, literally if, but when he came to her, el eshet achiv, the wife of his wife, v'shichet arza. So shachet means to destroy. So v'shichet is the PL what do they call it? Conjunctive perfect, because there's a vav at the beginning, right? So he would, and the vav doesn't exactly flip. I was actually convinced of this when I looked into it by the linguists, that it gives a more complex situation than just flipping from imperfect to imperfect or imperfect to perfect. But yeah, shachat means to destroy. So, and he artsa, right? The hey at the end is actually the directional hey. They always get this wrong in the morphology on on Bible Hub. Not sure if Blue Letter Bible does the same thing with the morphology, but this is the directional hey. So towards the ground, right? So, and he destroyed at artsa, right, towards the ground, lebilti, so that not, lebilti, prepositional lamed, and then bilti means without. Netan, to give, zera le'achiv, an heir or literally a seed to his brother. So he apparently didn't like his brother much, I guess. Okay, verse 10. And the thing which he did displeased was evil in the eyes of the Lord, therefore he killed him also. What he did was wicked in the Lord's sight, so the Lord put him to death also. Now, what he did was evil in the eyes of the Lord, and he put him to death also. Okay. Vayera be'enei Havaya, asher asa vayamet gam oto. Okay. So, and it was evil. The verb, they usually list it as resh ayin ayin. I'm not sure exactly why they double the ayin there, but they do. I've never seen anything that actually has a resh ayin ayin on it. Oh, okay. So there's an Aramaic loan word, ratzatz, which I guess is what ra'ah. I mean, they're trying to explain why it's resh ayin ayin. I'm not. Oh, here we go. Proverbs 18:24. Lehit ro'e'ah. There you go. There's the resh ayin ayin. So, there we go. Ayin Yud Chaf is to oppress. Ratzatz is to oppress. Yeah, not sure, but we had a resh ayin ayin, so I guess that explains where they get the resh ayin ayin from. But so literally it was evil, right? But it displeased. That's fine. Be'enei havaya, in the eyes of God. Asher asa, that which he did. Vayamet gam oto, and he caused him also to die. Yeah. Verse 11. Then Judah said to Tamar, his daughter-in-law, remain a widow in your father's house till my son Shelah is grown. For he said, lest he also die like his brothers. And Tamar went and dwelt in her father's house. So this is his last son. She was married to two of his sons. They both died. And there was an idea that might be something to do with her. Judah then said to his daughter-in-law Tamar, live as a widow in your father's household until my son Shelah grows up. For he thought he may die too, just like his brothers. So Tamar went to live in her father's household. Then Judah said to his daughter-in-law Tamar, remain as a widow in your father's house until my son Shelah grows up, for he said, lest he too die like his brothers. So Tamar went and she remained in her father's house. So Rashi says, meaning that he dismissed her with a straw, that is lame excuse, for he did not intend to marry her to him. Vayomer Yehuda leTamar Kalato Shvi almana beit avich ad yigdal Shelah beni ki amar pen yamut gam hu ke'echav vatelech Tamar vateshev beit aviha. Not exactly sure, Rashi, why is he saying that ki amar? So he's looking at the key because and saying that's that indicates it was just an excuse. Well, it says ki amar, not, and it doesn't say ki, just ki. It's saying because he said it, but he didn't really mean it. That wasn't real. Okay, so Yehuda says to Tamar, Kalato, so his Kala, his bride. Kala is a bride. Shvi almana beit avich. So Shvi is again. So there's, but I think here it's Yashav. Yeah, Yud Shin Bet. Again, this is one of those. I think there's a 2-letter root Shin Bet, and Yashav and Shuv are various ways of using it with weak radicals. Almana is a widow. Beit avich, in the house of your father. Ad yigdal Shelah, until shall grow, right? Gadol, grow. Shela, Beni, my son. Ki Amar, because he said, Pen Yamut Gamhu. Lest, pen is, I don't want this to happen, right? Lest is basically how you translate it. Yamut will die, Gamhu, also him. Ke Echav, like his brothers. Vatelech Tamar, so she went, Lalechet, to go. Veteshev, Beit Aviha, so she did what he said. Verse 12. Now in the process of time, the daughter of Shua, Judah's wife, died. And Judah was comforted and went up to his sheep shearers at Timnah, he and his friend Hira the Adulamite. After a long time, Judah's wife, the daughter of Shua, died. When Judah had recovered from his grief, he went up to Timnah, to the men who were shearing his sheep, and his friend Hira the Adulamite went with him. Then Judah, we did that. Many days passed, and Shua's daughter, Judah's wife, died. And Judah was consoled, and he went up to watch over his sheep shearers, he and Hira, his Adulamite friend, to Timnah. So, Vayirbu Hayamim, Vatamat Bat Shua, Eshet Yehuda, or is it Tamot? No, it's Tamat. Shua Eshet Yehuda, Vayinahem Yehuda, Vayal al Gozei Tsono, Hu Vechira Re'ehu, Ha'adulami, Timnata. Okay, so, and there were many days. Yirbu Hayamim. The days passed. The days got many. So it was a long time. Vatamat bat Shua. So the daughter of Shua died. Eshet Yehuda, the wife of Yehuda. Vayinahem. And so Nacham, I did a whole video on. Means to be comforted. Yeah. He finished mourning. It's in the Nifal, in the passive. Yehuda, V'ya'al, and he went up to, right? So again, Egypt, it's always going down to. Israel, it's always going up to. Within Israel, towards Jerusalem, it's always going up. So where exactly Timnata was, I have no idea. Timnah was, I have no idea. But he went up. Al Gozei Tsono. So Rashi interprets this al with the ayin to be to go watch over. Gozez means to shear or to cut, but shearing sheep. Tson, right? Sheep and goats are called tson. So no, hu v'hira. So he and Hira re'ehu. So this is the friend, right? That it says va'ahavta lere'echa kamocha. You shall love your fellow or your friend or your colleague like yourself. So that's the word re'eh there, however you want to translate it. Ha-adulami, the adulamite, right? Timnata. So again, the hey at the end is the directional, so towards Timnah. Okay, verse 13. And it was told Tamar, saying, look, your father-in-law is going up to Timnah to shear his sheep. When Tamar was told, your father-in-law is on his way to Timnah to shear his sheep, And it was told to Tamar, saying, Behold, your father-in-law is going up to Timnah to shear his sheep. Yeah. Oh, so actually, apparently Timnah also shows up in the book of Judges, 14:1, and Shimshon goes down. So why is it saying that he went up and Shimshon went down? It was on a mountain slope, so some people went down to it and some people went up to it. Okay. Apparently that's from the Talmud explaining that verse. Okay. Vayugad letamar le'emor hine chamich ole timnata lagoz tzon'o. So vayugad, so this is the hofal, which is the passive of the causative. Okay? And told is how it's usually translated. I personally, I prefer it reached. But yeah, it is to tell. Letamar to Tamar, le'amor, saying hine, and I usually do translate hine as behold. Chomich. This may be the only time I have seen cham in meaning father-in-law. It shows up 4 times in the Bible apparently. Twice in Genesis, in this chapter in Genesis, and twice in chapter 4 of 1 Samuel. Yeah, so Chama is mother-in-law. Chom is father-in-law. With an aleph is the Aramaic. In Arabic, it means husband's male relation. So, yeah. Yeah, Choma is... Oh, same as wall? I did not consider that. Not sure why wall. That's interesting. Apparently it's related to a wall. Yeah. I'm not sure why they're saying that. I'm usually much faster to connect different things than Strong's is, so not sure. Ole Timnata, so he's going up towards Timnah, again, that's the directional hay. Lagos, to shear tzon'o, his sheep. Okay, verse 14. So she took off her widow's garments, covered herself with a veil, and wrapped herself, and sat in an open place which was on the way to Timnah, for she saw that Shelah was grown, and she was not given to him as a wife. She took off her widow's clothes, covered herself with a veil to disguise herself, and then sat down at the entrance of Enaim. Interesting. So they don't translate it as Enaim, they do. Which is on the road to Timnah, for she saw that though Shelah had now grown up, she had not been given to him as his wife. So she took off her widow's garb, covered her head with a veil, and covered her face, and she sat down at the crossroads that were on the way to Timnah, for she saw that Shelah had grown up, but as for her, she was not given to him for a wife. And we might come back and read the Rashis here. Okay. V'tasar bigdei almenuta me'aleha v'tachas batzaif with a article. I'm guessing that's why Rashi thing. V'tit alaf v'teshev bepetach einayim. So that's the one where question is, should they translate it or not? Asher al derech timnata ki ra'ata ki gadal shela vehi lo nitna lo leisha. So taser means to take off, can mean to cut off, take off anything. Like sur means to flee, sur mera, free from evil, vasetov, and do good. But this is the causative, the hefil of it. Bigdei almenuta. So almana is a widow, almanut is widowhood, almenuta with the aspirated hay is her widowhood. And it's in construct with begadim, which is clothes, garments. Me'aleha, from upon her, preposition the ayin. Vatechas, so kisui is covering. So she covered. Chaf samech hey. Bat saif, it is so a tsaif is a veil apparently. Wrapper, shawl, or veil, used 3 times in the Bible. From an unused root meaning to wrap over, a veil or veil. Vetit alaf. So the root alaf actually means, so I remember this from Jonah. Jonah 4:8. So he became faint. In the other places it's faint, but here it's covered herself. Well, we'll take a look at the Rashis. V'teshev bepetach einayim. So she sat at petach einayim. So you can translate this as petach means an entrance or a doorway. Petach einayim. So ayin is an eye, and it is used also for gates, and it is also used for fountains. And so apparently the NIV doesn't want to translate it at all and leaves it at Einayim as if it's the name of a place. The other ones translate them as what did they do? Covered herself and sat in an open place. They translated it, and Chabad did at a crossroads. So let's read the Rashis. And covered her face, vehit tit alaf. She covered her face so that he would not recognize her. So he's apparently saying that the word alaf means that she was holding her face down, kasta paneha, so that he wouldn't recognize her. And he says, Petach Einayim, at the opening of the eyes, at the crossroads on the road to Timnah. Our sages, however, explained it midrashically to mean at the entrance to the residence of our father Abraham, which all eyes, Einayim, took forward to see. This is from the Talmud Sota 10a. So, however you want to translate Petach Einayim. Asher al derech timnata, which is on the way, derech, way, timnata, towards Timnah. Kirata, because she saw that Shelah had grown up, and she was not given, this is the nifal passive of to give, lo leisha, to him as a wife. Verse 15. When Judah saw her, he thought she was a harlot because she had covered her face. Does derech not need the article there? Let me look. It says al derech timnata. No. I rarely see haderech. Al haderech means towards, but this is derech timnata. Actually, no, this would not even, because it's in a construct form with timnata, and in a construct form in the Bible, only the last chain, the last word in the construct chain ever takes an article. So, yeah, that's why not. Why, thank you. Jesus Christ is King. It's nice of you to drop by. Keep doing the work, brother. Yeah. So, I'm guessing you're a Christian, maybe? Okay. So, we were on the next verse. Okay. Did we read? I think we did read it, that one. When Judah saw her, he thought she was a prostitute, for she had covered her face. 15. When Judah saw her, he thought she was a harlot, because she covered her face. And Rashi actually, I did not mean to click like that. He is reading it slightly differently. He's saying he thought she was a prostitute, is ve'achav sha lezona ki kasta paneha. He didn't. So he's again from the Midrash in the Talmud Sota is bringing what it says there. Vayir'eha Yehuda vayachshveha lezona ki chista paneha. So, and he saw her, pretty clear, Yehuda. Vayachshveha, so, chet shen bet. So chashuv is actually mostly used to speak about something that's important that people think about, right? So an important person is called an ish chashuv. A computer in Hebrew, modern Hebrew, is called a machshev, right? Something that computes. The word machshaba is often translated as plan or thoughts. And yeah, I mean, this is a root that is used. several times in the Bible, and even more so in Rabbinic Hebrew and modern Hebrew. So he considered her, he thought of her. I would probably do consider. Le zona. So the word zona comes from lazun, which means to provide. And it can mean, so there is a double meaning there. It can refer to an innkeeper because they provide, but apparently it was also a common word for being a harlot, fornication, right? The Bible warns lest you get moved over. Can refer to a drug dealer. I don't think. Hey, Catherine, how you doing? I don't think in modern Hebrew it's used as a drug dealer, but definitely innkeeper, provider, and someone who goes astray. So that is the word zona. When we recite the Shema, we recite a verse that says, actually I think it's a couple of verses, which refer to your eyes straying. So the tzitzit, keep your eyes from straying. I'm not sure what you mean, Dominic. But, so he considered her as zona. And in modern Hebrew, zona does mean, and in fact, common, kind of like calling somebody a son of a bitch is to call somebody a ben zona, son of a harlot. Ki chista paneha, because she covered her face. Pretty simple stuff. Okay, verse 16. Then he turned to her by the way and said, "Please let me come in to you," for he did not know that she was his daughter-in-law. So she said, "What will you give me that you may come into me?" Not realizing that she was his daughter-in-law, he went over to her by the roadside and said, "Come now, let me sleep with you." Hey, Jesse. We are getting a lot of people here today. It is nice to see you. Can you talk about Leviticus 11 and Deuteronomy 14? Is it a sin to eat unclean meat? We can address that at the end. I will answer that question. We are most of the way through. We are on verse 17 out of 27. And once we get there, I stay on for my live streams. I always try to stay on at least a few minutes so that people can ask questions. Because I think what I provide is the fact that this is live as opposed to people who are much more knowledgeable than I am. So I will answer your question, Jesse, at the end. But let us finish up here. Verse 16. Not realizing that she was his daughter-in-law, he went over to her by the roadside and said, "Come now, let me sleep with you." "And what will you give me to sleep with me?" she asked. Chabad. So he turned aside toward her to the road, and he said, oops, I must have, where did I? Interesting. So their translation is very different. And he said, "Get ready now, I will come to you." for he did not know that she was his daughter-in-law. And she said, what will you give me that you should come to me? Interesting. Okay, let's look at the Hebrew and see what. Vayet eleha el haderech. Vayomer, Havana avo elayich, ki lo yada ki kalato hi, vatomer, ma titen li ki tavo elai. Okay, so we discussed yet earlier, right? To get to, it is nata. So to turn, we discussed that at length before, in verse 1, I think it was. So he turned towards her. I guess that's where the question is. That's how I would translate it. El haderech. So upon the way, it's a preposition with the aleph. Vayomer, and he said, Hava. So literally, hava means give, but let's go. Jesse says, do you use Blue Letter Bible? It is very similar. I think it even has the exact same morphology that Bible Hub does. I know Ben, who is on Twitch right now, likes Blue Letter Bible. I have sometimes found some of its things useful, but I like Bible Hub. I've been pretty happy with Bible Hub mostly. I've considered moving over to Blue Letter Bible a couple of times because I have had problems with Bible Hub, but I just found this easier to use, cleaner. So I think the morphology is exactly the same that they give, though, here and there. Okay, so Hava, they're saying it's the command masculine singular and with a that morphology seems really strange to me. To give, Yahav, they're saying. Havu Godel, right? Havu is used as a command a lot in the Psalms, as in give praise to God. So Hava na, I usually translate na as please. It is sometimes translated as now. Don't know how you want to translate it. Avo, both here and when she says tavo later, are both written bemilui. If you're paying attention to that, bo usually is not written bemilui. So he's saying imperfect, right? It's an incomplete act. Let me come to you, alecha, elaich, sorry, to you, feminine. Ki lo yada, because he did not know, he was not aware. Ki kalato hi, that she is his bride. The pronoun is here being used as a stand-in for the present tense of the verb to be, which does not exist in Hebrew. So pronouns are used that way. And she said, Ma titenli, what will you give me? Ki tavo elai, that you may come to me. Okay, verse 17. And he said, I will send a young goat from the flock. So she said, will you give me a pledge till you send it? I'll send you a young goat from my flock, he said. Will you give me something as a pledge until you send it? She asked. And he said, I will send a kid from the herd. And she said, only if you give me a pledge until you send it. And Rashi is getting from Onkelos that Arvon is Mashkon is a security. Okay. So, Vayomer, Anochi ashalach gedi izim min hatzon. Interesting that, okay, so we had a slight rule in allegorical interpretation that anytime the word Anochi is used, it can in fact be referring to God, even though the person is referring to himself. And I'm wondering if Christians have all kinds of ideas about that now, because it says, and he said, I will send a Gedi Izim, a young goat, I guess is fine, right? Min Hatzon, from the flock. Interesting. If I wanted to do a Christological reading here, I definitely could. I thought Anochi is only used in the Pentateuch. In modern Hebrew, it's definitely not used. But I'm pretty sure it is. I mean, it's used 359 times in the Bible, so no, it is used. Oh, so far as the usage of particular words is concerned, in the Pentateuch, except Deuteronomy, ani is used in P, including H. This looks like documentary hypothesis stuff to me. J and E. In Samuel, there are 50 instances of each form. Jeremiah has 54 instances of Ani and 37 of Anochi. So, I mean, looks like the form criticism people are trying to play games. The Jewish interpretation is that basically Anochi gives some hint to the Ten Commandments, which starts Anochi Havaya Elokecha, I am the Lord your God. Yeah. Okay. Ashlach, Shin Lamed Het is to send or to appoint an agent. An agent is called a shliach. But also in Genesis, like when it says, lest they stretch out their hand, it says it's using shiluach yad there. So Gedi Izim, a kid of a goat, right? Min Hatzon, from the flock. And yes, we previously were translating tzon as sheep, but really tzon is what we would refer to as light animals, as opposed to like a cow, which is considered a heavy behema gasa, right? So the behema daka and behema gasa is the differentiation we make. So tzon can refer to goats or sheep. Vatomer im titen eravon ad shalchecha. And she said, only if, but I would say only if, titen eravon. So arav means, can mean to pledge. Yeah. So, yeah, you can look at your concordance there, but yeah, aravon, a pledge, a security. I would probably translate it as security. Ad sholchecha, until you send it, right? Until you're sending of it, I guess, kind of, until you're sending. Okay, verse 18. Then he said, "What pledge shall I give you?" So she said, "Your signet and cord and your staff that is in your hand." Then he gave them to her, and went into her, and she conceived by him. He said, "What pledge should I give you? Your seal and its cord and the staff in your hand," she answered. So he gave them to her and slept with her, and she became pregnant by him. So he said, "What is the pledge that I should give you?" And she said, "Your signet, your cloak, and the staff that is in your hand." So he gave them to her, and he came to her, and she conceived his likeness. Interesting. Vayomer ma ha'eravon asher eten lach, vatomer chotamcha u'pitilecha, umatcha asher beyadcha, vayiten la vayavo eleha v'tahar lo. Okay. So, he says, "Ma ha'eravon." What is this security? I would have translated. Asher eten, that I should give you, that I will give you. V'tomer, and she said, chotamcha. So a chotem is literally a seal, right? So something that is chatum is sealed, and it was customary to wear signet rings, which were used to seal letters and things with, and those were also called chotam. Those were also referred to as seals. So a signet ring, seal. I'm guessing Jesse's rereading back is watching from the beginning. He says, "Rip Onan." Yeah, rest in peace. So chotam, a signature. Yeah. Yeah, lachtom can also mean to sign something. So signet. Ufitilecha. So a petil is a cord. I would probably translate this as belt. Cord, thread from patal, to twist. Yeah, I would probably translate this as belt. Bound, bracelet, lace, line, ribbon, thread, wire. I guess it could also be bracelet. Umatcha, and a mate is a staff, right? Asher beyadecha, which is in your hand. Vayiten la, and he gave them to her. Aspirated hay again. Vayavo eleha, and he came to her. V'tahar lo, and she conceived by him, to him, for him. V'tahar lo. Okay. Verse 19. So she arose and went away and laid aside her veil and put on the garments of her widowhood. After she left, she took off her veil and put on her widow's clothes again. Then she arose and went away, and she took off her veil and she donned her widow's garb. V'takom v'telech v'tasar tse'ifa me'aleha v'tilbash bigdei almenuta. So very close to the verse where she took off her widow's clothing and put on tse'if, the veil. Okay, so v'takom, and she got up. V'telech, and she went. Vitasar, again, took off, or laid aside. I would probably translate it took off. Tse'ifa, her veil. Me'aleha, from her. Vetilbash, and she got dressed in. Tilbash, livush means clothing. Kind of usually, I mean, in modern Hebrew, it's pretty much always when you dress yourself, it's in the reflexive hitpael, but I don't think necessarily so much in biblical Hebrew. Bigdei al menutah, right? So, like before, the clothes of her widowhood. Okay, verse 20. And Judah sent the young goat by the hand of his friend the Adulamite to receive his pledge from the woman's hand, but he did not find her. Meanwhile, Judah sent the young goat by his friend the Adulamite in order to get his pledge back from the woman, but he did not find her. And Judah sent the kid by the hand of his Adulamite friend to take the pledge from the woman's hand, but he did not find her. Vayishlach Yehuda et gedi ha'izim beyad re'ehu ha'adulami lakachat ha'eravon miyad ha'isha velo metza'ah. So, he sent, right? Yehuda sent the gedi izim, right, the young goat, beyad re'ehu. And like we said before, re'eh, it can be companion, friend, other, whatever, however you want to put it. Neighbor is sometimes. Ha'adulami, the Adulamite. Lakachat ha'eravon, literally to take, but to get the pledge or security. Miyad ha'isha, from the hand of the woman. Velo metza'ah, and he did not find her. So Jesse says he did find her. No, he didn't. What do you mean? It says velo metza'ah, he did not find her. Don't know what to tell you. And yes, that is a dagesh and an aspirated hey. He did not find her, not that she did not find. Velo matza'ah, he did not find her. Okay, verse 21. I'm not sure what you mean, Jesse. Then he asked the men of that place, saying, where is the harlot? And I remember that this word harlot is actually an interesting one. Who was openly in full view by the roadside, and they said, there was no harlot in this place. He asked the men who lived there, where is the shrine prostitute? Yeah, that's the translation here. Who was beside the road at Enaim. Again, whether or not you want to translate Enaim. There hasn't been a shrine prostitute here, they said. 21. So he asked the people of the place, saying, where is the harlot? So they translated as harlot. So who was at the crossroads on the way, and they said no harlot was there. So Rashi explains kadesha to mean prepared, mekadeshet, for znut, for harlotry. The root kadesh is where the word holy comes from, and that's why there is this idea that, and in fact there were places where there were, and unfortunately even today, if you go to India, you will find temple prostitutes, slaves, actually, in East Asia still happens. But yeah, the Kadesha was missing. So Kadosh can also mean to be set aside. And in fact, we refer to the marriage ceremony as Kedushin, right? The vow in Hebrew is Hare at Mekudeshet Li. Behold, you are betrothed to me, you are sanctified unto me, you are set aside for me. That's the Hebrew wedding vow. But yeah, there is a verse, I want to say in Deuteronomy, that there shall not be a Kadesh or Kadesha in Israel, because yeah, we did not have temple prostitutes. Okay. Ve'yishal et anshe mekoma le'emor aye hakedesha hi ba'enaim al hadarech ve'yomru lo haita bazeh kedesha. Interesting way of wording things. So Ve'yishal, and he asked, et anshe mekoma, the people of her place. Interesting way of putting it. And mekom is written bechisaron. And again, if you're trying to read this in a deeper allegory, you should remember that makom is one of the ways we refer to God. Le'emor, saying, Aye ha-kedesha, where is the kedesha, however you want to translate the kedesha. I would probably do temple prostitute myself. Hi va'enayim. So the pronoun is kind of used as a verb to be. I have no idea, Jesse. I don't think so. I don't think this is where that was. But we'll see. So she was, whether you want to say Einayim is a place or at the crossroads or however you want to translate Einayim, but it does have in the vocalization, it does have an article which would indicate to me that it's not just the name of a place, but that's the vocalization. Al haderech, right, on the road, on the way. V'yomru, and they said, lo haita bazeh kedesha. They say, literally, there has never been in this place, in that, right? Maybe the prostitute is set apart to other gods, so I agree temple prostitute is best. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, this is something that the pagan world has and had, and I mean, there are to this day, if you go to certain places in East Asia, you will find shrines where basically the priests are just pimps, and they have poor women who are basically sex slaves, and that's what's going on there. And unfortunately, if you want to look up the Shiite practice of temporary marriage in parts of Iran, Afghanistan, and Pakistan, you will also, and parts of Iraq too, I guess. Wherever you have Shiite Muslims, you may find, in fact, basically the same thing, where imams are arranging temporary marriages. So they have this idea that you can marry a woman for a set time from an hour to 99 years. And it's called Sireh. And yeah, it's basically exactly what you think it is. So this is a practice that existed apparently a lot, and it was forbidden in Israel. And I don't much blame a lot of rabbis who like don't really understand this. I have spoken to many rabbis who have no concept of temple prostitution, but it was widely practiced, and unfortunately, it is a form of sex slavery that is practiced in Asia today. Yeah, this is not a rated G thing of the Bible, chapter of the Bible. Let's put it this way. Jesse says, yeah, I believe it was very popular back then and still today. Yeah, unfortunately, there are actually, so I'm going way off the thing, but there are actually apparently more slaves today than have ever existed in human history, because we have lots and lots of people, and we have lots and lots of slavery, and basically people don't talk about it. Jesse says, I'm 20, so I'm good. If I remember correctly, you're definitely over 20. I believe you have some kids. Thought so. Unless you're not the Jesse I thought you were. Catherine says, not rated G, but I've always thought she was very clever and bold. I would agree with you. And in fact, the parents of the Messiah, so you will notice that later we have Ruth, who was also clever and bold. And these are the two mothers of the Messiah. So yeah. Where were we? And he returned to Judah and said, I cannot find her. Also, the men of the place said there was no harlot in this place. So he went back to Judah and said, I didn't find her. Besides, the men who lived there said, there hasn't been any shrine prostitute here. Catherine says, top lobster for the ladies. Yes. So he returned to Judah and he said, I have found her. And the people of the place also said, no harlot was here. Vayashav el Yehuda, vayomer lo matzatiha, vegam anshe hamakom amru lo haita bazeh kedesha. So, Vayashov, and he returned. Again, the whole thing with the Shin Bet. People used to say the Bible is G-rated all the way. No, it's not G-rated, but at the same time, I am not fans of people who, even a 13-year-old, like a child that's bar mitzvah, I'm sorry, if he's 13, you need to teach him the Torah exactly as it is, all the way through. And there are definitely a lot of people in the Orthodox and ultra-Orthodox world who very much disagree with me, and I see no excuse for that whatsoever. So that's one of the things I get mad at Orthodox Jews about, and I actually talked to PVK about this once. It's in my one of my 2 conversations with PVK. So he returned El, preposition to Aleph, Yehuda, V'yomer lo matzatiha, I have not found her. I did not find her. It's in the perfect. V'gam anshe hamakom, and again, I mean, if you're trying to look at this at a deeper level, there's the word makom again, place, and this time it's with a vav. Darshan away. Amru, they said, lo haita bazeh kedesha. There was no kedesha bazeh in this place. Okay, 23. Then Judah said, let her take them for herself, lest we be shamed, for I sent this young goat, and you have not found her. Then Judah said, let her keep what she has, or we will become a laughingstock. After all, I did send her this young goat, but you didn't find her. So Judah said, let her take them for herself, lest we become a laughingstock. Behold, I sent this kid, but you did not find her. Interesting Rashi there about the kid and Joseph, if you're interested. Okay, Vayomer Yehuda, so he said, Tikach la. She should take it for herself. Let her have it, I guess. Pen nihye lavuz, lest we be scorned. That's how I would translate it. So lavuz is the same word as is used by Esav, vayavoz ha bechora, he scorned his birthright. So this is the same word there. Hine shalachti. Okay, so Catherine wants to see the Rashi. So Rashi says that the Gedi, right? So he says, behold, I sent this kid. Since Judah had deceived his father with the kid in whose blood he immersed Joseph's coat, last chapter, he too was deceived with a kid. So he's making the connection between the Gedi here and Joseph. And apparently he gets that from the Midrash Rabbah of Genesis 85 9. Genesis Rabbah is available on Sefaria. Some of it is translated. If you want me to look it up later, send me a DM on Discord, and I will see if there's a translation. And if there's not, I will, in fact, translate it for you. But apparently it's from the Midrash Rabbah, which is a source we traditionally date from around the year 300. Okay. Okay, so we're on verse 24, unless I skipped something. Okay. And it came to pass about 3 months after that Judah was told, saying, Tamar, your daughter-in-law, has played the harlot. Furthermore, she is with child, pregnant, by harlotry. So Judah said, bring her out and let her be burned. 24. After 3 months... I don't think I finished the last verse in the Hebrew, so we did lavuz. Hine shalachti hagedi. Here I sent the gedi, young goat. Yeah. It's a little abbreviated. The other places it was gedi zim, and here it's just saying gedi. And probably that's what Rashi is darshaning there. Hazeh, this young goat, ve'ata lo matzata, and you did not find her. Okay, we were reading 24. About 3 months later, Judah was told, "Your daughter-in-law Tamar is guilty of prostitution, and as a result, she is now pregnant." Judah said, "Bring her out and have her burned to death." Now it came about after nearly 3 months that it was told to Judah, saying, "Your daughter-in-law Tamar has played the harlot, and behold, she is pregnant from harlotry." So Judah said, "Bring her out and let her be burned." We can do the Rashis. We'll come back and do the Rashis. Veyehi kimishlosh chadashim, vayugad leYehuda le'emor zantah Tamar kalatecha, vegam hine hara liznunim, vayomer Yehuda hotziuha vetisaref. So it was kimishlosh. Interesting way of putting it. It was like 3 months. Jesse's running commentary is interesting. I'm not going to read it all. Chadashim, right? So months. Chodesh is 1 month. So Hebrew has singular, dual, and plural. Chadashim, Chodesh is month. Chodshayim is 2 months. And Chadashim is multiple months. So more than 2. There is a dual form in Hebrew. Vayugad, and it was told, or reached, is how I usually translate it, Yehuda, to Yehuda, saying, Zantah Tamar. So, like I said before, it can mean to stray. It can also mean to provide, as in, like, an innkeeper is also called zan, or in fact to feed someone. So mezonot actually means food, Tamar kalatecha, your bride. Kala is bride, meaning daughter-in-law. Vegam hine hara, and also behold, she has become pregnant. Liznunim, to harlotry, I guess. Yeah, znunim, right? Yeah, I guess. Kind of strange way of putting it. Plural abstract intensive, they're saying. And it's twice in Nahum 3:4. Let's take a look at Nahum 3:4. Goyim biznuzneha. Yeah, Merov znunei zona. Interesting. Nahum's being quite judgmental there. Okay. To harlotry. Vayomer Yehuda, and he said, Hotziuha. So this is the hefil causative. So it's the command form of the causative of letzeit, to go out. So he's saying, bring her out, vetisaref, and she should be burnt. Let her be burnt. Saraf is the same word as seraphim, right? It means to burn, and actually this is where we learn that she was a bat kohen, because this is the punishment of a bat kohen, the daughter of a kohen, for fornication. Okay, so Rashi, now it came after nearly 3 months, right? So kimishlosh chodshayim, like 3 months, right? The greater part of the first, the greater part of the third, and the complete middle one. Kimishlosh chodshim. The expression kimishlosh chodshim means upon the tripling of the months. Ooh, so he's translating it ki mishlosh chodashim, as if the months were thirded up, like sending portions, mishloach manot, Esther 9:19, and they said, stretch it their hand, mishloach yadam, Isaiah 11:14, and so Onkelos rendered ketaltut yarchaya, of the tripling of the months, and also apparently Genesis Rabbah talks about this in 85:10. Are the Mikra and the Tanakh the same? So Mikra means things that are read out loud, and generally we usually don't. I mean, you can definitely refer to the entire scripture as Mikra. Although, really, we would say only things which are read in public, like the Torah and the Megillot and the Haftorot and things like that. That's generally what somebody would think of when you say Mikra. Whereas the Tanakh is obviously the entire thing. I've never heard anybody refer, for example, to Psalms, Tehillim, as Mikra. Although I think the Talmud does that. It calls it Kra. So, yeah. Mikra comes from reading. So, yeah, so that's how he's translating Mishlosh. So they had it prepositional chaf, prepositional mem, as from 3, whereas, and it's written bechisaron, whereas they're translating it ke mishlosh, like a tripling or a of the months. Yeah. I almost feel like saying is like a trimester. You know what I mean? Okay. She was pregnant, hara, Hebrew hara. This is an adjective, pregnant, like a pregnant woman, hara, bara. Yeah, he's saying it's not a verb here. Vegam hine hara. So yeah, he's saying it's a thing. Nesharim. About at the end of 3 months, maybe. Yeah. Maybe. I mean, the Targum is also taltut, right? So the threeness. What's my thoughts? Jesse, you're gonna have to leave these questions until the end. I'm sorry, or I will answer them in the end. You can ask them now. Okay. So he's saying did they also put it as hara? They're saying it's an adjective. He's saying it is an adjective. So they agree. Okay. He's saying it's not a verb. Okay. And let her be burned. Ephraim Miksha said in the name of Rabbi Meir. Again, this is from the Genesis Rabbah. She was the daughter of Shem, who was a priest. Therefore, she was burned. Okay. 25. When she was brought out, she sent to her father-in-law, saying, by the man to whom these belong, I am with child. And she said, please determine whose these are, the signet and cord and staff. As she was being brought out, she sent a message to her father-in-law. I am pregnant by the man who owns these, she said. And she added, see if you recognize whose seal and cord and staff these are. She was taken out, and she sent to her father-in-law, saying, from the man to whom these belong. I am pregnant. And she said, please recognize whose signet ring, cloak, and staff are these. He mutzet vehi shalcha el chomea le'emor le'ish asher el ele lo anochi hara v'tomer haker na lemi ha-chotemet v'ha-petilim v'ha-mateh ha'ele. Interesting. Okay, so first of all, I was not aware that in the same verse you might have he written in two different ways. This one with a vav and one with a yod, but I guess it happens. Mutzet. So this is the hofal again. She was brought out. She was brought out. Interesting. And she sent to her father-in-law, right, saying, Le'ish asher ele lo, to the man whose these belong. Okay. Anochi, again, however you want to do Anochi here. Hara, became pregnant. I am pregnant, I guess, yeah. Adjective again, hara. Vatomer, and he said, haker, this is the command form of the hefil of makir, to recognize, right? We usually refer to recognizing people. Na, again, I usually translate it as please. Sometimes it's translated as now. Either one works. Lemi ha-chotemet. So the words are not exactly how we had them before. So instead of just calling it chotem, it's calling it chotemet, which is in the feminine, right? V'hapetilim, and this is in the plural. So the cords. Earlier I said I would translate it as belt, but now it's in the plural, which is interesting. V'hamateh, and that's, I think, the same. The staff, ha'ele, all of these, right? Okay, verse 26. So Judah acknowledged them and said, she has been more righteous than I, because I did not give her to Shelah my son, and he never knew her again. Judah recognized them and said, she is more righteous than I, since I wouldn't give her to my son Shelah, and he did not sleep with her again. So Judah recognized them, and he said, she is right. It is from me, because I did not give her to my son Shelah, but he no longer continued to be intimate with her. Vayaker Yehuda, Vayomer tzadka mimeni, ki al ken lo netatiha l'Shelah, Beni, velo yasaf od leda'ata. So, vayaker, this is the hefil again of to recognize, Yehuda. Vayomer, and he said, tzadka mimeni. So, in modern Hebrew, you can say, hi tzadka, right? So, literally it means she's righteous. Hi tzodeket, right? She is righteous, but it also means she's right. I'm wrong, right? And in the Bible, several times, the person who, like the judge finds innocent or in the right even if it's a money matter, the person he rules for. So she is more righteous than I understand. I also understand why Chabad did not translate it that way. In modern Hebrew, if you were to say this sentence, people would say, he's saying she's right. But yeah. Ki al ken, for therefore, lo natatiha leshela, no thank you. For al ken lo natati, because of this that I did not give her to Shelah. Yeah. Velo yasaf od ledata, and he did not continue. I would probably translate yasaf as, this is the same word as Yosef, as Joseph, right? But yasaf od, he did not continue. He did not more od ledata, to know her. And obviously this is biblical knowing, because this is the Bible. Now it came to pass at the time for giving birth that, behold, twins were in her womb. When the time came for her to give birth, there were twins in her womb. I had forgotten that she had twins, but I guess that makes sense with parrots. Yeah, right. Jesse remembered. I had forgotten. And it came about at the time she was giving birth that, behold, there were twins in her womb. Veyehi ba'et lidta vehine te'omim bebitna. So, and it was at the time, be'et, there's no article there, but that's how you would translate it. Lidita, of her giving birth. Aspirated hay. Vehine, and behold, te'omim bebitna. There were twins. Ta'om is a twin. In her beten, stomach, however you want to translate beten. Womb, I guess. Usually womb is rechem, but however you want to translate that. Okay. 28. And so it was when she was giving birth that the one put out his hand, and the midwife took a scarlet thread and bound it on his hand, saying, this one came out first. When the time came for her to give birth, there were as she was giving birth, one of them put out his hand, so the midwife took a scarlet thread and tied it on his wrist and said, this one came out first. And it came about when she gave birth that the infant stretched out his hand, so the midwife took and bound a crimson thread on his hand, saying, this one came out first. Veyehi belideta, veyeten yad vetikach ha-meyaledet, vetikshor al yado shani, le'emor ze yatsa rishona. So it was in her giving birth, belideta, again, with the aspirated hay, veyeten yad, and he gave a hand, or he put a hand, he set a hand, however you want to do that. Vetikach ha-meyaledet, and so she took the meyaledet, one who causes to give birth, the midwife, and it is female. Vetikshor al yado, and she tied a kesher, right? Kuf shin resh, not chaf shin resh. Al yado, on his hand, shani. And a shani is, it doesn't say thread, but implies thread. Something that is red. You can use your concordance here. Yes, shani is used symbolically in many places. Le'emor, saying, Ze yatsa rishona, this one came out first. 29. Then it happened as he drew back his hand that his brother came out unexpectedly. And she said, How did you break through? This breach be upon you. Thereupon, his name was called Peretz, which means breakthrough, breach or breakthrough. 29. But when he drew back his hand, his brother came out, and she said, So this is how you have broken out. And he was named Peretz, means breaking out. And it came about as he was drawing back his hand, behold, his brother emerged, and she said, What strength you have strengthened yourself? And he named him Peretz. Interesting. Okay. So Rashi is translating paratzta according to Onkelos as meaning strength, chazak. Vehi kemeshiv yado, vehine yatsa achiv, vetomer ma paratzta alecha paretz, vayikra shemo paretz. Okay, so, and it was, vehi, ke meshiv yado. So, meshiv is the hefil, the causative of to bring back. So, as he drew back, was causing to come back, his hand, yado, vehine yatsa achiv, and behold, his brother came out, vatomer, and she said, ma paratzta. So, however you want to translate Peretz, be prosperous, break forth. It is used many, many times in the Bible. Alecha. So, upon you, how you have broken forth yourself. Interesting way of putting it, alecha. It's the preposition of the ayin. Paretz, a breach, vayikra shemo paratz. So again, in Hebrew, this doubling of language, paratzta alecha paretz, right? It's a very common thing, which is used in Semitic languages. And so the reason why Chabad had Yehuda called him is because it's Yikra, so she didn't call him, and was called would have been in the Nifal, which this isn't. That would be V'yikare Shemo. So he called, so assumedly that would be Judah. Shemo Peretz at the end of a sentence turns to Paretz. So that's that. Okay. Verse 30. I believe this is the last verse. It is. Afterward, his brother came out, who had the scarlet thread on his hand, and his name was called Zerah. And they didn't translate that for some reason. Then his brother, who had the scarlet thread on his hand, came out, and he was called Zerah. Zerah meaning scarlet or brightness. Exactly. I don't know why NKJV did not translate that, but they did not. Afterward, his brother emerged, the one upon whose hand was the crimson thread, and he named him Zerah. And Rashi says the same thing. Yeah. Interesting. So Rashi, this is an interesting Rashi. I'm just going to read it. The one upon whose hand was the crimson thread. 4 hands are written here, corresponding to the 4 devoted things by which Achan, who was descended from Zerach, committed a trespass. Some say that they correspond to the 4 things that he took, all in Joshua? Yeah, I think so. Joshua 7:21. And apparently this is also from Genesis Rabbah. And he named him Zerach because of the shining appearance, Zrichat, of the Shani, of the crimson. Va'achar yatsa achiv, asher al yado hashani, ve'yikra shemo Zarach. So, and afterwards came out Achiv, his brother, asher al yado. So Rashi's saying there's 4 times the word yado, and if you look in Joshua, I'm pretty sure, you will see that a descendant of Zerach stole 4 things apparently that he shouldn't have. Hashani, the scarlet thread. Ve'yikra, again, same thing, and he called him Shemo Zarach. And Mizrach means east, because Zoreach means to dawn, right? And that's why it can mean brightness or redness, or that's the thing. And this samech at the end tells you that there is a stuma, there is a closed break in the scroll. So the scrolls traditionally have closed and open breaks. The closed breaks usually I refer to kind of as paragraph markers, because they are not visible when you look at the margins, and that's why they're called closed breaks. And open breaks are breaks that show in the margins. And that's why they're called open breaks, and those are usually more heavier breaks, or are considered heavier breaks in the scroll. Okay, if anybody has questions about this chapter, please feel free to share. Otherwise, I am going to go back and read Jesse's questions. Why wonder why they? I'm not sure what you're asking. And as always, I will finish with Tzefania 3:9. Ki az epoch el amim safa bera likro chulam b'shem havaya le'ovdo Shechem echad. Shechem echad. Sorry. So I will turn over a pure, winnowed language to the people, so that they may all call in the name of the Tetragrammaton to serve him with one accord, with one shoulder. Now, let's go back to Jesse says, can you talk about Leviticus 11 and Deuteronomy 14? Is it a sin to eat unclean meat? I am guessing that you are speaking about... So there's 2 ways that meat can be considered unclean. First of all, neither one is a sin for a Gentile. These are rules which only apply to Jews, and only to some Jews. So the meat itself can be from a impure animal, which is a non-kosher animal, which Jews are forbidden from eating, or the meat can be kosher but be in an impure state, which is different, and that is only applicable to things which are like sacrifices being eaten by Kohanim, by priests in the temple. I wonder why did they put a scarlet thread on the firstborn child? Because it was very important which child is first, because that child is the Bechor, and the right of the firstborn and the obligations of the firstborn were different. Okay, so Leviticus 11. Let's see. So already starting out, it's speaking to Aaron, so it makes me think it's referring to the priesthood. Zot hachaya mikol b'ema. Okay, so this is referring to Jews should not eat from these animals. I don't see where you see unclean here. Well, it says tameh. Yeah, so that's the opposite of tahor. And so the rules which Acts 15 applies to Gentiles seems to be from Genesis 9, which is not to eat the blood. And our interpretation is that it must be dead first. Don't eat something as it's alive. But apparently the Jerusalem Council took that more strictly. They seem to actually be talking about actually buying kosher meat, which you can do because you are assured then that it is properly slaughtered, but it is not required of Gentiles. So that's 11, talking about those. And then you also asked about Deuteronomy 14. So Deuteronomy 14. Banim etem l'Hashem, right? You shall be a holy people. Lo tochel to'eva, abominations. Right. So this is talking about animals, which, again, Jews are prohibited from eating. This is not incumbent upon Gentiles, and it's not talking about a state of impurity. It's talking about animals that by their nature are considered unkosher animals, which does not necessarily mean they're bad animals. Obviously, a lion is, in fact, a good thing, right? We talk about the Lion of Judah, not a clean animal. Can't eat it. Horses are sometimes referred to in good ways in the Bible. Okay. That was your first question. The second question... what's your thoughts on the book of Enoch? It is not part of the Jewish Bible, so I have not actually read it. I'm not a huge fan of it. I realize it is, in fact, quoted in Jude, so Christians put more emphasis on it than I would. What I think it does point to is the fact that the Jewish esoteric tradition definitely existed back before the time of Jesus. I think that's clear, and I think that's important, and I think the book of Enoch does that. Hey! This is Snorkel Blog, who I am going to be speaking to next week, who is an interesting person. Jesus Christ is King says, also, unclean meat was in the book of Genesis when Noah took 7 clean animals and 2 of every unclean animals. Yeah, tahor and tameh, I would not say that that applies to whether or not Gentiles can eat them. Ben is not a fan of the book of Enoch. He thinks it's a fraud. And he says, Jude doesn't say it's a book. What can I tell you? Let's see. Could have been a passed down saying verbally. Okay, you mean the quote in Jude? Okay, I guess. I mean, yeah. Either way, doesn't make a huge deal for me. If anybody has any more questions, please let me know. I am going to look in the Discord server. Of course, you are all welcome to join me in my Discord server. Some of the Apocrypha I find biblical. Well, I will have to disagree. Catherine, you're very welcome. If you want me to look up, in fact, why don't I look up Genesis Rabbah right now? So, Midrash, where is Midrash Rabbah? Bereshit Rabbah. And what was Rashi looking at? 85, 11, and 10, 11, 13. Actually, all 9. So, let's look up. So, this is in Sepharia. And what were we saying? We were saying chapter 85, starting with 9. 85. Yeah, there's no. Well, 1 wasn't translated, 2 was translated. So, so Sepharia has community translation, which is kind of a wiki. So some of them are translated, some of them are not. 9 is actually translated. So I will put a link to this in the chat. Oops. I will. Okay, I am going to put the link into the chat on my Discord server because it's going to be hard putting it into that chat. And I am also going to DM it to Catherine. So, that's 85:9. There is a translation. I can't guarantee it's a good translation, but apparently there is, in fact, a translation. So that's 85:9. 10 is not translated. B'Shem Rabbi Meir, Ninayan, She'en ha'ubar nikar b'me'eh ha'isha, Hachi v'hi kimishlosh chadashim. So it's talking about the 3 months there in Midrash, the Midrash 10. 11 is also not translated. 12 is also not translated. 13 is also not translated. 14 is also not translated, and going off this one. So I guess chapter 85 is mostly about. Yeah, so actually, the entirety of chapter 85 appears to be about our chapter. Somebody did translate 2, which is, yeah, that's already talking about Joseph and the previous chapter. בשם אריך, כל מי שהוא מתחיל במצווה אינו גומרה, קובר את אשתו ואת בניו, לומד מיהודה. Right, so in 3, the third midrash is the one that starts. And unfortunately, even though this is the Hebrew does have the vocalizations, which in theory should make it easier for Google to translate it. Google's translation uses modern Hebrew, and therefore having the vocalizations usually causes it to be even more confused and make worse translations. So I cannot recommend trying Google auto-translating it. I will at some point try to get some time and translate that for you. Okay. Back to... You're very welcome. If there are any other questions... did I miss any of Jesse's questions? I think that's all of Jesse's questions. So I am going to hang around another 25 minutes, but I am going to go get myself some tea. I will be back. You guys talk amongst yourselves. Shouldn't be very long. And if you have questions, please type them now, because I will answer them when I get back. Snorkel. Incredible how many questions there are for 3 concurrent watchers. If only I was so lucky. Well, first of all, it says 3 concurrent watchers, but I'm pretty sure that's wrong. I think it doesn't do well. I don't think YouTube does well for thing. And yeah, Catherine isn't always on. Ben shows up sometimes. Ben actually streamed on my channel, so he could be teaching this. Jesse doesn't really show up that much. Jesus Christ is King. This is the first time I believe he's been here. And Dominic is one of our regulars. And will probably be teaching this stuff in a little while. Okay. Catherine, are there other stories in Scripture you can think of that involve a trap which included a goat? Esav is another. Huh. I'm thinking Yosef might be a better person to ask. He tends to be a lot smarter than I am. Rainbow Bible. Hello, Rainbow Bible. This is your first time on Twitch. Glad to have you. If nobody's actually asking questions, I am actually thinking, why don't I read those midrash and translate them as we go? So, this is from the previous chapter. I don't think it has anything to do necessarily with this chapter. I'm not seeing anything. Well, actually, I guess it is kind of related. Let's see, 85:1. Yeah, so actually, yeah, so I guess this entire chapter 85 is about this chapter. So let's start with 1. And it was when Yehuda went down from his brothers. Rashi translates that as was demoted. Bagda Yehuda v'toeva ne'esta. So they were not happy with him. He became an abomination. So this is Malachi 2:11 that he is quoting. That it is quoting. Sorry. Amar le kaparta Yehuda shekart Yehuda v'to'eva ne'esta be'Israel. Yehuda na'asa chulin. Again, Malachi 2:11. It's talking about where Yehuda was made less. Chilal Yehuda Kodesh Havaya Asher Ahev. Micah 1:15. Od hayarash aviha lach. So it's quoting a bunch of verses about Yehuda not being so good. So now it talks about the first verse of our chapter. Rainbow Bible says, I thought I should meet the neighbors. I stream the Bible 24/7 in this category. Not many use it. This is a true Rainbow Bible. I stream... I do other streams, but when I stream specifically Bible chapters, I use this stream on Twitch, and that's why I use it. Very nice to meet you. I'm Jacob Federacci. Most people watch my stuff on YouTube, though. So if you want to look, I have a lot more content on my YouTube channel. So, and then Jeremiah 29:11. See, I don't want to translate Bible verses that I don't know even the verses around them without thing. V'Yakov haya asuk besakov tanito. So Yehuda was getting married when everybody else was fasting and wearing sackcloth. The other brothers and Joseph and Jacob. V'Hakadosh Baruch Hu osek bore oro shel melech hamashiach. And Hakadosh Baruch Hu, the Blessed Holy One, God, was busy creating the light of the Mashiach. V'yehi ba'et hahi v'yered Yehuda. So that's what it means when it says that Judah came down. Interesting. Beterem tachil yalada. So Isaiah 66:7. Kodem shalom nolad mishabed harishon nolad goel ha'acharon. Before was born the first enslaver, was born the first redeemer. V'yehi ba'et hahi ma ketiv lamala min ha'inyan v'hamedanim machru oto el Mitzrayim. So, first Midrash is saying that Yehuda went down to get married while everyone else was, in fact, sad and mourning, in essence. This is telling you that God was creating Mashiach at that time. Yeah. Let's read the English. What is written about the matter? Many sold him to Egypt, and then it was time, and the reading narrative only requires it. And Yosef was, so it could have just left this out. And because of what was this section, Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yochanan, Elazar said, in order to make one descent approximate to the other descent, because it says Veyered, again, Yehuda went down, and it is a story of Yehuda going down. Rabbi Yochanan said, in order to make one use of the word recognize, hikir, right, because it talks about recognizing here. Approximately recognize. Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachman said, in order to make the story of Tamar approximate to the story of Potiphar's wife, to tell you that just as this one of Tamar was for the sake of heaven, so to this one, the incident of Potiphar's wife was meant for the sake of heaven. Okay. Said she saw through her astrology that she was destined to raise a child from Yosef, from him, but she did not know if it would be from her or from her daughter, because he actually, so Yosef married I guess Potiphar's wife's daughter. I think so. This is the meaning of what is written, Isaiah 47:13. Let the diviners of months inform you from that which will come to you. By the way, if you're looking at any of these midrashic texts, it will it is hyperlinked to any of the Bible verses that are being quoted. So just in case you are looking at that, you might you can look up the Bible verses easily, even if you don't know the Hebrew. These are links to Bible verses. So Rabbi Ebo said, from that and not all that. And similarly to sequences, they were not embarrassed. And the snake was sly. Genesis 2:25. Okay, now I have to read the Hebrew because it Rabbi Ebo Amar Miasher lo v'dichvata v'lo yitbasheshu v'anachash haya arom. Right, so in Genesis it says they were not ashamed. Lo haya tzarich kra lememar ela v'ya'as Hashem la'adam la'ishto. So it didn't need to specify that. Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha Amar lehodia me'eze chet kapatz alehem oto rasha mitoch shera'a otam mitaskin b'derech eretz nit'ava lahem. I'm not sure what exactly he's saying. Oh, Oto Rasha is the snake. Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachman Amar Kidei l'smich b'hafsek malchut lehafsek malchut. Okay. Because kings and kings. Okay. Belela Kitil Bel Shazar Malka Kastai Dayavash Mada Lehan Hu Bishnat Shlosh Lamachud. I mean, the translation is here, but this is even hard with the translations. And this isn't just in Hebrew, it's also in Aramaic, which makes it harder for me. Amar, Hashtar Matzui Lekabot. Amalahem HaKadosh Baruch Hu Asara Bnei Adam Shenitzadu Gneva Ein Echad Nitfas Al Yedei Cholam. Okay, I'm just gonna let you try to figure it out from the translation, because maybe I'm just tired and my brain's not working so great, but that one's been translated. Rabbi Yehuda bar Simon v'Rabbi Chanan b'Shem Rabbi Chanan Kol mi shehu matchil b'mitzvah ve'ino gomra. Anybody who starts to do a mitzvah and doesn't finish it, kover et ishto ve'et banav, is causing his wife and children to die. Mimi atalamed. Where do you learn this from? From Yehuda. He started to try to save Yosef and did not finish doing that, and that caused all of this sadness in his family. Etzel Aviv, he should have taken him to his father. Ma garam lo, what did it cause that his wife and kids died? Rav Huna says, Kol mi shematchil mitzvah ve'eino gomra. V'achar ba gomra, anybody who didn't finish a mitzvah but tries to do it later, hini karat al shamo shel sheni, it is called according to the second one. Hada hu d'chtiv, that's what it says in Yehoshua, Joshua 24, 32. Ve'et atzmot Yosef asher ha'elu b'nei Israel v'halo Moshe ha'elam. Wasn't it Moses who brought up Joseph's bones? Shneamar in Exodus 13:19. V'ikach Moshe et atzmot Yosef, right? Ela lefi shenigzar alav shelo yikanes la'aretz, because Moses himself never went into the land of Israel. Ve'elu nitpalu bahem lefichach nikret al shamam. So the rest of Israel did it. That's why it says that they did it. Ve'atzmot Yosef. Moshlim lama hadavar damar. What is this like? Lilistim shenachnesu lamartef, like thieves who got into the cellar, achad shel yain, of wine. Natlu kadkan echad v'shatu. They took one bottle and drank it. Hetzitz alehem baal hamartef amar lahem yarav lachem yehusam lachem yimtak lachem. So the owner comes and he says, you should enjoy it. Shiten et hayayin hachazira et hakankan lamakoma. Once you finish drinking, put the bottle back in its place. Kach amar hakadosh baruch hu leshvatim machartem et Yosef hachziru atzmotav lemkoman. In a similar manner, God said to the tribes, you sold Yosef, return his bones, that is the bottle, to its place. Doar acher, amer lahem Yosef lamakom she genaftuni sham tachziruni. Or otherwise, someone says that Yosef said, take me back to where you stole me from. Halo achecha ro'im b'Shechem, ken asu b'nei Israel, shneamar ve'et atzmot Yosef asher ha'elu b'nei Israel mitzrayim kavru b'Shechem. So they ended up in Joshua. It says that they buried him in Shechem. Okay, v'yet ad ish adulami ushma chira. Right, he gets to a man. Right, Rabban amrei chira hu chiram shahaya b'yamei David. So this is the same person who is called Hiram in 1 Kings 5:15. Ki ohev haya Hiram leDavid. He was a friend of David. Kol hayamim lamud haya ha'ish hazeh lihyot ohev lashevet hazeh. Right? So he was a friend of Judah and continued to be friends all the way down to David. Rabbi Yehuda ben Rabbi Simon Amar Hiram acher haya. He says, no, it's a different person. Al da'at hon de Rabbanan haya karov le'elef u'matayim shana. According to the Rabbanan who say it's the same person, he must have lived close to 1,200 years. Va'al dato date the Rabbi Yehuda chaya karov l'chamesh mot shana. He lived 500 years, close to 500 years. That's not sure why. If he is saying it's not the same person, why he had to live 500 years. V'yarsham Yehuda bat ish Kenani Ushmo Shua Bar Gavra Tagara Botsina de Atra. He was an important person, and no, he was a merchant, and he was going place to place, I guess. Er Shahu Ar Min Ha'olam. He was called awake because he was taken away. I mean, it kind of makes sense in the Hebrew, from the world. V'tar od onan shehevi anina la'atzmo, because he brought not good things on himself. V'tahar od shela shenishtalshel min ha'olam, because he came down from the world. V'tosef od chaziv Paskat Shem Makom Veyehi Er Bechor Yehuda Ra Be'enei Hashem Shahaya Choresh Beganot Uma'ara Lashpot Ma'are Lashpot. Not really sure what it's saying. Vayomer Yehuda. Oh, okay. I think this is a rabbinic saying for coitus interruptus, I guess they call it. 5. Vayomer Yehuda le'onan. Yehuda hichal b'mitzvat yibom tchila tane kol davar shahaya b'chlal heter v'nesra chazar v'hutra lo lehetera harishon chazar ela lehetera hasheni. Anything that was once allowed and then disallowed and then allowed again is allowed only in the second way. Yevama lefi shaitat b'chlal heter v'nesra v'chazar v'hutra Yechol tachzor lehetra harishon. Right? So he married his son, and so a father is not allowed to marry his son's daughter. His son's wife. When his son died, there was supposed to be a yibum. There was supposed to be a Levirate marriage, which was then also removed, and that's how she could marry Judah. Talmud Lomar Yevama Yavo Leha Mitzvah Rabbi Yossi Bar Chalafta Yabem Ish Eshet Achiv V'chamesh Be'ilot Baal Aderch Sadin Baal V'nata Chamesh Netiyot Israel. Maninhu Bishma Elazar ben Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Racham ben Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Chalafta ben Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Dimos ben Rabbi Yossi. Havian in Inohi Zamoran V'domyan Le'ime. Really not sure what it's saying. It's talking about rabbis who were then descended from the same thing, but again, not really comprehending what it's trying to say. V'yada onan hayadash mi bifnim zorem lachutz. Again, talking about spilling the seed. Yomer Yehuda l'tamar kalato. Amar Rabbi Elazar af al pi she'ein nachash yesh siman ki amar pen Yamut Gam Hu Ke'echav. Says even though it doesn't mention the snake, it does hint towards it, because we see in Genesis 38:11, it says, "Lest he die like his brothers," and that's I guess, a hint to Gan Eden. Ronan Amre Beit Tinok ve'isha afal pi she'ein nachash yesh siman. I mean, I understand the words. I don't understand what it's saying. The house of a child and woman, even though there is no snake, there is a symbol. Really not sure what it's saying. There were many days. 12 chodesh. That's 12 months. Al gozitzono b'chol makom shenemar geziza. Anytime it talks about shearing, osei roshem, it has a particular meaning. V'chen matzino benaval ve'lavan ve'avshalom. We saw this regarding Naval, Laban, and Absalom. V'yigad letamar le'emor. Rav amar shtei timnayot hem. There are two twins. Achad shel Yehuda v'achad shel Shimshon. One of Judah and one regarding Samson. V'lama hu maskir ba aliyah v'yirida. So why does it talk about going up and going down? Ela aliyah leYehuda shehu ma'amid. Oh, no, Timnayot. So Timnah, right? So this is what Rashi brought. So there were actually two towns. So it mentions Timnah, the town Timnah, twice. Yeah, I thought it was okay. So Shehu Ma'amad Malachim. V'yirda l'Shimshon shehu noseh goya. Rabbi Simon Amar Timnata achat hi. Rabbi Simon says no, there's only one. V'lama hiskir ba aliyah v'yirda. Amar Rabbi Aibo ben Agri kahada Beit Ma'on the Salkin la min Tiveria v'nachatin la min Kafar Shuvti. So he says it's like that place that's between Tiveria and Kafar Shuvti, where what Rashi says about the slope. She took off her widowhood clothing. Shtaim hen shenitkasu b'tayif. There are two people who covered with veils, Tamar and Rivka. Ushtehen yaldu te'omim, and both of them had twins. Rivka, in Genesis 24:65, v'tikach hatzaif v'titkas. So she took the veil and covered herself. Tamar v'tachas b'tzayif v'tit'alaf. V'teshav b'petach einayim. Amar Rabbi Amai chazarnu al kol hamikra v'lo matzinu makom sheshemo petach einayim. So he says, I don't see anywhere else in the Bible where it talks about petach einayim. Umahu bepetach einayim. So what does it mean? Ela melamed shel talta eineha bepetach shekol ha'einayim toluyot abo. That she put her eyes in the opening where all eyes are put. V'amra yiratzon b'fanecha Hashem Elokai. God, it should be your will. Shelo etzeh min habayit hazeh rekanit. So when it says petach einayim, it means that she turned toward the place where every eye looks, and asked God, don't let me leave this place with nothing. דבר אחר, בפתח מלמד שפתחה לו את העין. Or else it teaches that she opened his eyes. Amra lo tehora ani upanuya ani. She said, I am pure and unmarried. Okay. Vir Eha Yehuda, and so Yehuda saw her. Amar Rabbi Chia bar Zavda tzarech adam lezaher atzmo ba'achot ishto. A man needs to be careful of his sister-in-law, uv krovatav, and in his family, shalo yikashel ba'achat mehem, that he should not stumble. Memi ata lamed, from Yehuda, you learn from Yehuda. V'yer Eha Yehuda, that he saw her. Lama ki kista et paneha ad shehi bebeit chamia, because she covered her face except when she was in her father-in-law's house. Davar acher, v'yer Eha Yehuda lo hishkiach kevan shekista ad paneha, or you could also say that he wasn't careful about himself because she wore veils and she was careful, and so he thought he didn't have to. Amar ilu haytada zona haytada machase paneha. Kevan shekista paneha. Amar ilu haytada zona. Amar. I don't understand what that's saying. Lo hishkiach kevan shekista paneha. He did not pay attention because she had covered her face. He said she must be a harlot because she has a covered face. Not sure what it's saying there. Amar Rabbi Yochanan bikesh la'avor v'zimen lo hakadosh baruch hu malach shehu memuned al hata'ava. So Rabbi Yochanan says that he wanted to pass, and God sent an angel whose job is to incite lust. Amar lo Yehuda heichana taholech, where are you going? Mechan malachim omdim, from where do kings come? Echan gedolim omdim. V'yet aleha al derech al korcho shelo betovato. So where it says that he v'yet aleha, that he turned towards her, tells you that it was not his own thinking. Okay, 9. Vayomer ma he'aravon asher eten. So what's the security I should give? Amar Rabbi Chonya nitznetza ba. Well, this is translated. Your seal of royalty. So this has been translated to English, so I'm going to skip it. Okay. 10. Sumkos Omer B'Shem Rabbi Meir Minayin Sheina Ha'ubar Nikar B'Me'eh Ha'isha. How do we know that you don't know a woman is pregnant? Ela ad shlosha chadashim, until 3 months, until she's 3 months pregnant. Mehacha, from here. V'hi kimishlosh chadashim. Right? It says like 3 months. Rab Huna B'Shem Rabbi Yosef Shlosha Shlemim. It says it must be 3 whole months. Ela rubo shel rishon verubo shel acharon ve'emtza shalem. V'lo sof davar shlosha shlemim. It can be the end of 1 month and in the middle 2nd month and the end of this. So it's not actually 3 whole months. V'gam hine hara leznunim. She became pregnant to harlotry. Ela melamed shahita metapachat al kresa ve'omeret malachim ani me'uberet. she would touch her pregnant, caress is pregnant belly, and would say that I am pregnant with kings. Goalim ani me'oberet. Saviors I am. Hotzi'uha v'tisarev. She should be taken out and burnt. Ephraim maksha talmido shel Rabbi Meir. Amar mishum Rabbi Meir. Tamar bito shel Shem haita. Right, so like Rashi says, they taught that Rabbi Meir taught that she was the daughter of Shem. Dechtiv ubat ish kohen leficha chotziot v'tizaref, because it says in Leviticus that the daughter of a kohen is killed with fire. Okay, 11. He mutzet. Amar Rabbi Yehuda mikan she'ne'evdu v'himtzi HaKadosh Baruch Hu acherim tachtehem. This is how we know that they will be destroyed and God will find an other. Hech amad at amar o matza aveda, or somebody who finds a lost article. Amar Rav Huna hi mutzat. Oh, wait. He vehu tzrichin latzet vehi shalcha el chamia le'amar bikesh lichpor. She wanted to atone. Amra le hakerna et boraich. Recognize your creator. Shalcha v'shal boraichen. They are yours and that of your creator. Hakerna lami hachotemet. Amar Rabbi Yochanan Amar lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu leYehuda ata amarta la'avicha. Hakerna, you told your father recognize, and so Tomar replies recognize, right? Because he the whatchamacallit, yeah, the jacket. Okay. Vayikar Yehuda, Rabbi Yirmiyah v'Shem Rabbi Yishmael bar Yitzchak b'shlosh hamakomot hofia ruach hakodesh. In 3 places, the Holy Spirit shows itself. Bebeit dino shel Shem, in the court of Shem. Bebeit dino shel Shmuel, in the court of Samuel. Bebeit dino shel Shlomo, and of Solomon. Bebeit dino shel Shem ve'ker Yehuda ve'omer tzadka mimeni. Right, because here it's right. Mahu mimeni. What does it mean? More than I am. Rabbi Yirmiyah b'shem Rabbi Yitzchak Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu atem tihyu me'idim ma shebagalui v'ani me'id alav ma shebaseter. You guys, the rest of you have to give testimony to what is known, and I will give testimony to that which is hidden. Bebeit dino shel Shlomo hi imo mi amar Rav Shmuel bat kol tzovachat ve'omeret hi imo avadai. So in First Kings 3:27, it is a heavenly voice which is saying who his mother is. Bebeit dino shel Shmuel, and in 1 Samuel 12:3, Hineni anu bi ve'yomer Ed Hashem bachem ve'yomer Ed yatzta bat kol ve'omer. And it says that God is a witness, so a heavenly voice. Omer b'nei Eli says regarding the sons of Eli, 1 Samuel 2:17, v'tihi chatat hane'arim gedola, that they were very, very sinful. Chtiv asher yishkavun et hanashim hatzovot, because they were sleeping with the women Not sure what sovot means there. Efshar ken banav shal oto tzadik hayu asin oto maaseh. Is it possible that the son of such a righteous person would do such a thing? Amar ma'ata al yedei shahayu mashin et kinehen leshilo lehitar behem mashin otam chutz labatehem laila achad he'ela alehem hakatuv ke'ilu shimshu imahen. Because they were causing these women to spend extra time, it was like that. Is it possible that Samuel's kids would do such a thing? Amar Rabbi Berachia mebarchata hayta overet bever sheva v'hayu manichin tzarchei tzibur v'oskin b'tzarchei atzman u'mikoach atan ma'aseh ma'ala katuv. Because they were being selfish and doing their own things instead of, that's why it says that it was like they did that. Like we said before. Okay, 13. How many are there? 13, 14, 2 more. Okay, we can do that. Okay. V'yiba et lidata. It was at the time she was giving birth. Kan chaserim lahalan milein. Here it says it with lacking letters, and there it's full. V'hinei te'omim bebitna, te'omim amalek. Okay. Kan shneim tzadikim. In the first place, both of them were righteous. Lahalan, later, kitachliv tomim chaser, where it doesn't have the yud in tomim. Echad tzadik ve'echad rasha. One of them is a good person, and one of them is a bad person. Ve'ibil yad amar Rava bar Rochista shlosha ne'emanim la'altar. 3 are believed immediately. Ve'elohen, these are the 3. Hachaya v'hashayara v'hamateheret et chaverta. Not sure what those 3. The third one is the one who declares her friend, not sure. Chaya. What does chaya mean? Dechtiv v'tikacha meyaledet v'titur al yado shani le'emor ze yatsa yirishana. Not sure what chaya is translating as. A live woman. Shayara. I'm not sure what shayara is translating as. Those who are left over? Blood relations. What's chaya? A woman in confinement. Oh, a midwife. Okay. So chaya is okay, a midwife. Okay. There are Rabbi Simon the Rabbi Yehuda bar Zavdi b'shem Rav Tinok kol zman shem mushlach b'shuk aviv v'imo me'idin alav ne'esaf min hashuk tzorich shnei edim. A child in the market, the parents themselves can say, this is my child, but once it's been taken away from that place, then you need two witnesses. המתאר לחברתה כי תנן 3 נשים ישנות במיטה, אחת ודם תחת אחת מהן, כולן טמאות, בדקה אחת ומצא דם, היא בלבד טמאה, אמר רב בלבד מעת לעת. Okay, so this is complicated rules of menstruating women, and yeah, not sure it's something to. Vehi kemeshiv yado ze rabba al kol hapritzim b'mechad yamod Allah haporetz lifnehen Rabbi b'sham Rabbanan Amre kol haportzin mimecha omdin shnamar Allah haporetz lifnehen v'achar yatsa achiv kama yadot kitiv kan Rabbi Yudan Arba Keneged Arba Haramim. So this is what Rashi was talking about the 4 things that Harems shel Sihon, Og v'Harems shel Jericho v'Harems shel Canaanites. Rabbi Huna Amar Keneged Arba Devarim Shehu Atid Litol Min HaCherem. So the first ones talk about the 4 Harems of Amalek, of Sihon and Og, of Jericho and the Canaanites. Rabbi Huna says it's the one that Rashi mentioned from Joshua 7:21. V'Rabashal Aderet Shin Arachat Tova. Rav Huna says, Ma Bavel Aldahacha Ela Tane Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai Kol Melech v'Shilton Shelo Haya Lo Shultan Ba'aretz Hu Omer Eina Shaveh Klom. So any empire that did not rule over the land of Israel isn't really a kingdom. Melech Bavel Antikesar Shelo Haya Yoshev B'Yericho Haya Ze Meshalech Lo Ze Kotven Ze Meshalech Lo Dorayot. Not really sure what it's saying. Okay, if I were to actually try to translate those completely, it would take me forever. I hope that helped, and you can try to match up the verses there. Okay, unless anybody else has questions or comments, I am going to leave in a few minutes.